Penn State football is on a roll. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Ryan Snyder with me. When you see one of these guys hanging out, either him or Sean Fitz, here on a video on a Wednesday afternoon, it means there's breaking news and another commitment for Penn State football. So Ryan, clue us in. Other than the graphic, the title, the name, and the face, tell us about who the next Nittany Lion is.
Yeah, Dayshaun Burnett, which I think if you follow the boards closely, if you follow recruiting closely, it's pretty well aware, I think, over the last 48 hours or so, word kind of started getting out there that he's getting close to a commitment. Of course, he put it out there then on social media as well that he'd be announcing today at 2:45. And sure enough, he's a Nittany Lion. We have him at 6'3", 215. Another Pittsburgh prospect out of Imani Christian Academy. Penn State is on an absolute roll right now in Western Pennsylvania with 2025 prospects. He's the fifth to Western PA prospect to join the class already. Of course, Alex Tash, linebacker from Latrobe, just committed the other day. You have Tyke Hayes. You have Xavier Thomas. You have Brady O'Hara. Who am I missing? Am I missing somebody? I think that's it. But yeah, just the class is on an absolute roll in Western PA, and you got to give Terry Smith a lot of credit for that. Of course, he oversees recruiting out there, and I think they're just it's a good year out there, right? I mean that's a good place to start, and all those connections are starting to pay off. So this is an interesting one, just because I think positional versatility. Like there's let me backtrack a little bit. There's two things that really make this commitment interesting to me. And if you follow us on the board, I kind of was hitting at this the other day. The one thing is that it's kind of rare to see a player come to Penn State as often as Dayshaun did. His last visit, I believe, was in early September for the West Virginia game. And that he hasn't been back on campus since. And he has gone out to a bunch of other schools since then. And I was kind of getting the impression that, hey, maybe Penn State's not really going to be in the mix here as much as I thought. I thought they'd be top 3 or top 5 when it was all said and done. But it didn't feel like Penn State was the favorite that I thought they would be maybe last spring in the summer or something like that. So that was interesting because he wasn't up for a junior day. Again, his last visit was back in September. So we're talking almost 6 months or so since the last time he's been on campus. So that was interesting. And then also just positional versatility here. So On 3 has him listed as a linebacker. He camped at Penn State as a linebacker. That's kind of why I built his profile as around a linebacker and all that. You know, when he camped, which was June 2022, I believe, he was right around, I think, 6'2"-ish, 195. And, he's added an inch since then, and he's up to a legit 215, maybe even a little bit more. Again, he hasn't been on campus for a while, so it's been hard for me to try and track down updated heights and weights there. I wouldn't be shocked if he's 220 or maybe even a little bit above that. So the big question now is he a linebacker or is he a defensive end? When you put on the film, which I know you're going to get into in a second, he primarily played linebacker. That felt like his main position, but they certainly found ways to rush him off the edge. I know you want to talk to you, Frank. Get it, buddy.
Oh, yeah, no. I think you're right in terms of the size and the frame and some of the skills he shows here on film. Definitely has tweener has a negative connotation, but he definitely could go either way. We talk about, not that I'm comparing him to Zariah Fisher specifically, but Zariah Fisher had a huge frame, and you felt like he was destined to play linebacker, but you gave him the opportunity to see if he could stick at Mike linebacker. I think you have a similar situation here with Dayshaun Burnett of a guy that has the frame to play defensive end, or he could be a big kind of old school throwback Mike linebacker, so that versatility is baked into what he is as an athlete. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, and what's interesting is his size is pretty much exact same as Alex Tash. I mean, Alex is just a hair under 6'3", or at least put this way, we have updated numbers on Alex Tash. Again, he hasn't been on campus for a little while, and I'm not sure where he's at right now. Again, wouldn't be shocked if he's a little over 215 now. But so they're similar in that perspective. But I think Penn State firmly sees Tash as a box linebacker, where I think it's a little more mixed, just from talking to different people on where Dayshaun could play long term. And I think him playing off the edge more this year and them being able to see that has kind of piqued their interest, I guess we'll say. So he's got obviously a whole nother year of high school football to go. Let's see where he stacks up, in 8 months from now. But it's an interesting one. And he's probably like the third guy now in this class. If you add in Brady O'Hara, of course, who could play tight end or offensive tackle. You add in Amari Gaines, who I expect to be a safety, but he's played a good bit of corner as well. Like I said, he's the third out of 10 guys now who are pretty versatile positionally, and will be interesting to
Yeah.
watch as we go into next season.
I usually have pretty strong opinions about things, just full stop. But generally with these guys, I have a position lean in mind when I'm looking at what they do on film. And you mentioned Brady O'Hara, and that one seemed pretty clear that this could be a very good offensive tackle. I do think Burnett could go either way, because as you saw there on the highlights, I think he has decent coverage plus side, where he's not. Sometimes you see a guy that's destined for defensive end, and it's because they are very good at linear movement. They're explosive, and they get after the quarterback, but necessarily they don't move in space very well. Level competition is one thing, but he shows good instincts, decent hands. He played quarterback, receiver, tight end, running back. He played everything on offense, and then on defense, he played this a little bit of a hybrid role. Digging into some of his full film, I like his coverage instincts. And then on the flip side, I don't know that he's the longest player in the world, so the reach and everything like that from a frame perspective, I would say he can play defensive end. I would be interested to see how he develops and physically grows, because I do think there is some things that he would need to check off the box if he were to be a full-time defensive end. So really a player that could go either way, just based on what I've seen of him on film.
Yeah, talking to his coach too. I mean, he said they played him at like a hash safety role at times. Offensively, as you mentioned, he played a few spots. What's interesting? I was talking to his trainer, Dwayne Brown. He's runs 2 tents out there in Pittsburgh. Anyone who follows Team Evolve and all those guys out there, like Dwayne's very respected out there. He compared him to Khalil Dinkins, which I thought was interesting. And so we don't have a lot of numbers on Khalil because he was the class of 2021. Of course, the pandemic, we just weren't, there was no camps and stuff like that. So it's hard to compare where Dayshaun is as far as an athlete. But if anyone knows both of these guys, it's Dwayne. He trained both of them. I think he's been training Dayshaun since like 5th grade or something like that. So I just thought that was interesting. It was an interesting comparison. Not saying he's going to be a tight end or anything like that, but he just thought as an athlete, they're kind of similar players. Interesting.
Yeah, and Dinkins was a good athlete coming out of Northern Allegheny, I think it was.
Yes. Yep.
And so and you look at Burnett physically, I love the way he's built. So that's not a surprise that he's been a part of 2 tenths. You mentioned you talked to his coach, you talked to people around him. What about Burnett, the person, and what do you know about his kind of story coming to Penn State as a recruit?
Yeah, locker room guy is really what everybody says, right? Not a selfish player, a team guy, fits well in the locker room. Everything that you want to hear, or Penn State, at least Penn State's coaches, and I think Penn State's fans too, as far as a good fit for Penn State. So everything's good there. He picked up an offer, like I said, in June 2022, had a handful of other quality offers. It felt like West Virginia, Pitt, were the main competitors there. I know he did include Rutgers. I think he put out a tweet last night, including Rutgers, Pitt, Penn State were kind of his top 3. He went to West Virginia quite a few times as well, so they were in the mix. Wisconsin was interesting because it felt like Wisconsin was kind of coming on strong here in the fall, and he took a visit to Wisconsin as well, I believe in November, and that was kind of when I was getting a little confused on how interested he was in Penn State. But Michigan also offered, Michigan State. He's got some quality offers there. It's certainly a quality pickup. He's also I think the 4th or 5th 4-star prospect now to commit to Penn State's class. So that's a positive, at least according to On3's industry rankings, which of course, put together all the major sites for a cumulative score. Yep. So it's like an even split, I believe. I think it's 5 4-stars, 5 3-stars, something like that now. So certainly a quality player. It's just like I said, the big thing is just where's he going to play, and we won't really have that answer until we see where he's at as a senior and, project his frame after that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to get all that information, find out how as you mentioned, all these puzzle pieces fit. But what are we looking at as we, come to the end of this conversation about Dayshaun Burnett? What are we looking forward to? What are the things you're thinking about in terms of recruiting?
Well, it's a dead period now. So unlike in January, right, where we always had a junior day coming up, or we knowing Penn State's coaches are out on the road, it's going to take a little bit of a backseat here over the next couple weeks, and that's by design. The February dead period was brought in because coaches felt like they weren't getting enough time with their team. I mean, if you look at the calendar, right, March, April, sure, you got spring practice, but recruiting is very heavy then. Of course, you go into May, you got the spring eval period. You go into June, you have official visits, and then July, yeah, they take vacation there. But even at the end of the month, they go back into recruiting. So that's why this dead period was put into play, is to let them kind of recap last season and really kind of formulate a plan for player progression and things like that going into spring practice. So long way of saying it's going to be kind of quiet on the recruiting trail, I think, here for the next couple of weeks. I'm not saying they couldn't add another commitment. Obviously, schools are still talking to players electronically, over the phone, text message, all those kind of things. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Offers will go out, but no visits, it looks like, for at least, I would say, mid-March or something like that, when we'll see guys back on campus. The last thing I would add, too, that's interesting, not necessarily, it doesn't really impact Dayshaun, but looking at Imani Christian as a school, right? It's kind of a newer school, smaller school, but it's really quickly picking up talent. And props to his head coach, Leroy Johnson. Like I said, I talked to him earlier. He's really kind of building something up there. And they have two really good up-and-coming players. David Davis has been on campus multiple times. He's held an offer from Penn State since 2022. Looks like a really good running back prospect, 5'10", 180. We have him as a safety at on 3, but that's going to get changed. He's already a 4-star too at on 3. So I think that speaks highly to, his potential long term. As I said, he's 2026, so he's only a sophomore. And then keep an eye on Gabriel Jenkins as well. 6 foot, 175. I think he's a little under 6 foot. I'd put him a little closer to 5'10", 5'11". His profile says 6 foot right now. But he's looking like a solid cornerback prospect. So I'm not saying this is going to be the next McDonough or anything like that, but this school does set up, especially when you add in Terry Smith's ties to the area, as a school I think we're going to be talking about more and more. So getting Dayshaun Burnett, they took Dayshaun Burnett because they like Dayshaun Burnett, don't get me wrong, but getting that one commitment, getting him in your program, well, now you got a couple other guys coming through. I didn't even mention Carter Bonner, I believe it is, another young prospect that Penn State offered. He's transferring into Imani Christian, I believe, this year. So, this is looking like a school that's going to be cranking out some Division I guys, and Penn State's able to get one of their first early players that kind of emerge on the scene in Dayshaun Burnett. But I think we're going to be talking about Imani Christian more and more. Remember the name David Davis, Gabriel Jenkins, and Carter Bonner.
Put a bookmark in it. A barkmark. Put a bookmark in it. We better get out of here before my tongue fails me even further. I'm Thomas Reichard. That is Ryan Snyder here on Breaking News. Penn State adds a 4-star defensive athlete, Dayshaun Burnett, to the class of 2025. As always, subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com to get the advanced information on all of these things, and subscribe here so you can hear our conversation about it when these breaking news and commitments happen. Until the next one,